Welcome to today's podcast, Healing Through Love, with Dr. Matt Singer, a holistic medicine specialist with an expertise in energy work, homeopathy, and works with people all around the world to help them remove emotions trapped in the body. And co-host Holly Celiano, a mother, intuitive healer, and well known to international audiences as a resource for truth seekers on a variety of global concerns that are currently impacting humanity. Today's focus, healing through bad relationships.
So hello everybody, I am Holly Celiano and I am here with Dr. Matthew Singer. He is a holistic doctor that has a practice in Wayne, New Jersey. He specializes in holistic medicine along with homeopathy, energy work, removing emotions, and he does remote healings as well globally around the world. So we are starting today with our first series. It is going to be today called Loving Yourself Out of a Bad Relationship. So welcome, Matt.
Well, thank you so much, Holly. It's such an honor to be on this podcast with you.
Thank you. So let's talk about what is loving yourself out of a bad relationship in your practice. How would you assist somebody with that?
So when we talk about loving ourselves out of a bad relationship, we first want to understand that we get into a relationship for the wrong reason. And when we're dealing with love, we're dealing with two different types. We're dealing with condition-based love and unconditional love. So the reasons why we got into the relationship in the first part were usually the wrong reason, either because someone was afraid to be alone, or someone felt obligated, or someone felt as though they owed it to the person. They just knew from the very beginning it wasn't the right step to take. And now they feel that in the relationship, they don't know how to get out of it. And now the relationship becomes, instead of a loving relationship, it becomes a relationship of resentment, and it becomes a relationship of judgment and criticism and stress. And so when we're dealing with loving ourselves enough out of a relationship, very often when I'm dealing with patients in my office and they're coming in with some kind of a disease or ailment, they spent a lifetime trying to heal a disease through a symptom, where they would go to a place and they say, well, you have this, and no one would ever tell them why. But it comes down to the origin of a stress, and their stress usually is because they're putting up with something that they don't want to put up with, especially in a bad relationship. Now, the relationship could be a marriage, or it could be a work relationship, or it could be a friend relationship, or it could be a sibling. There's many ways of defining a relationship, but in any of those categories, it's staying in a relationship for the wrong reason and putting up with different aspects of the relationship that you should not be putting up with.
What I have noticed in relationships is most people compromise themselves to stay in a relationship because they don't have the inner strength, or they're beaten down in a relationship to stand up and leave. And they feel that they've invested so much time and energy in this relationship that they will stay and keep putting up with bad behavior instead of stepping away from it. And ultimately, as you have taught me, it's loving yourself enough. So when you love yourself, you would not tolerate somebody's bad behavior to stay in a relationship.
Correct. Now think about what you just said is such a great point. Why do you think somebody stays in that bad relationship?
Because they have low self-esteem. Mm-hmm. They feel bad about themselves. They're with a narcissist. The narcissist mm-hmm. is controlling and beating them down and told them that they're not good enough, and they believe whatever is being told to them.
Correct. Have you ever seen a relationship where someone stays because they're afraid financially? They're saying, well, my wife or my husband makes the money, and if I leave, then what's going to happen?
Yes.
And that's where I say to them, well, that's your ego talking. That's your physical fear-based brain talking. You're not listening to your heart or your higher self. Your higher self has the answer of how it's gonna work out for you. The ego can't see the answer; it can only see 2 feet in front of it. So when you come with an aspect of faith, then there's going to be circumstances and events that happen that you never could have planned out or guessed were going to happen, but it's going to go in your favor. So when you want to get out of a relationship, the first part of loving yourself is trusting that when you have a decision to leave and you honor that, your higher self is going to show you how it's going to work in your favor.
So what would you say to somebody that's in a bad relationship? How do they get out? What would you recommend are the steps necessary?
Well, the first steps to get out is to understand why were they in it in the first place. So once they can recognize why they got in the relationship in the first place, then it will help them to understand that they're no longer willing to put up with that. So the first thing is recognizing. So I always ask them, why did you get into the relationship, right? And what do you think most people say when I ask them that?
A lot of them thought it was love, but most people don't even know what love is.
Right. So they thought it was love, but they didn't know what love was. Just like, we could think, we could think like this is a specific kind of flower, but it could end up being something completely different. So we could think it's something, but who defines what love is really us. It's really what's within us.
So how would you define what love is? Because most people are so misguided with what love is. We've never been taught that, what true love is.
Yeah.
And as children, we grow up with a false sense as to what love is. And most people are searching. They're either wanting to love or be loved. That's our human intrinsic nature. And
Yes.
they're following that, and they're misguided with what they're looking for.
Yes. So my definition of what love is what's in our heart. So when I remember when my children were born and I saw them for the first time, this overwhelming feeling of love came over me. When you define love, it's going to be different for each person, but the definition of love is what's in your heart. So it doesn't have to be somebody else's definition. It's just a matter of you listening to your inner being, because for some people, they may never want to be in a relationship, and that's love for them. And that's just not in their karmic, vibration in this lifetime. But if they don't listen to that, and then they listen to their spouses or their parents and say, you're getting older now, you really should get married and do it for me. That's not love. So love is following your highest joy, what's inside your heart, and that's going to be unique for each person.
And most people don't even listen to their heart. They don't even know how to tap into that. They're so conditioned from the outside world and movies and, love songs, and they get a false sense as to what love is. They don't know how to go within. Yeah.
So one of the greatest techniques that I've learned about really understanding what love is really writing a letter to yourself. And you're writing a letter to yourself of how grateful and thankful you are. And most of the time, I can have 50 people in a day, and I could say, who's the most important person in the world? And half the time they'll say somebody else, and half the time they'll say, it should be me. So when I say it should be you, you're saying it's not you. You're like, yeah, I know it should be me. So that means that they've been trained for so long to believe that they are not the love.
So how would you recommend somebody to retrain themselves to know that they are the love?
To first get in contact with themselves and take a good look at their daily self-talk. Like when you look in the mirror, what are you saying to yourself? Are you so proud of yourself? Or are you so ashamed and embarrassed and judging yourself based on what you think other people think of you? So the first way to get back involved with knowing that you're the love is really just feeling that inner peace within inside of you. So that's why writing a letter. So like you would write a letter to yourself. Like I'd say, dear Matt, I'm so thankful just to be writing this letter to you. I know for years I felt this and this and this, or I wasn't good enough, or I had to achieve something based on what someone else thought of me, or if I didn't accomplish this right away, I felt like a loser, this or that. I'm writing a letter to myself, and I'm uncovering all these false beliefs that I was comparing myself to this person or that person. I don't think I was as far along as I should have been based on what society says. So as I'm writing, more and more inspiration starts coming out, and all of a sudden you feel this lift. You feel this release. The second thing I then tell people to do is now meditate. And a lot of people say, well, I don't know how to meditate. I say, well, have you ever daydreamed before? And they say, sure. I said, well, that's a form of meditation. Do you ever take a pen and doodle? Like, yeah, that's meditation. And obviously there, as you know, there's different layers of meditation, but it's just about getting quiet with yourself.
And that is a really difficult thing for the majority of people because we're so distracted by all the outside influences. We don't know how to be quiet, and people don't want to be quiet.
Yes. Now, someone has to teach us that the outside influences are more important than us. And that usually starts at a young age. So let me ask this. Where do you think these outside influences are going to come from?
The outside is stemming from our parents who have kind of demonstrated that to us as kids because they've been our example. They've been our example really for love, for our definition of what love is.
Absolutely. Another great avenue for the outside influence is going to be like religious leaders. Someone goes to a church or a temple or a mosque, whatever it may be, and they're being fed information that may not necessarily be what the divine is really telling us. It could be what a human interpretation is, or it could be about suffering, or it could be about fear and trying to control you. When they can get you to be in a state of fear, they can control you. So that's other outside influences I've seen.
So the steps that you would, if somebody came to you and we're talking about how to love yourself out of a bad relationship, you would have them first write a letter to themselves. Well, first define what it is love is.
Yeah, the first thing I would do to help them, like let's say someone comes in and they say, I'm in a horrible relationship and it is stressing me out, and now they've developed this cancer or disease or something like that from it, because they're living this horrible life that they think that they can't get out of. They feel stuck. They have resentment for their spouse or their job or their boss or their coworkers. They feel stuck. They feel like other people are against them, and they're living their life day in and day out because they're going to bed like that and they're waking up like that. So the very first thing I would do, as we spoke about before, is the powerful technique of Ho'oponopono. That's the first thing I would do, because I'm going to say to them, tell me exactly how it feels being in this relationship. And they're usually what do you think they're usually going to say?
They feel horrible, suffocated.
Right. So I say horrible and suffocation sits on the top of the iceberg. Why do you feel horrible and suffocated?
Because I'm in this bad relationship and don't see a way out.
So you feel stuck. So we would Ho'oponopono that feeling of stuck. So when you're in this horrible relationship and don't feel a way out, do you feel powerful or powerless?
Powerless.
Yeah. Do you feel empowered or disempowered?
Disempowered.
Yeah. Do you feel loved or unloved?
Unloved.
So I started Ho'oponoponoing that. So I would have them do this with me, where I would tell them, okay, let's do this. And I would bring them through Ho'oponopono, like, I'd say to them, to my highest, most divine self. And then I'd say to them, you're going to say it silently, but you can change it, whatever, or edit it. But they're going to say, for whatever reason I had to experience, because they're experiencing it for a reason. Their soul is making them experience it for a reason so they can see the opposite. So whatever reason they're experiencing or taking responsibility, it's always a responsibility for this feeling of being unloved, this illusion of feeling unloved or unappreciated, unimportant, stuck, manipulated, disempowered, whatever reason they chose subconsciously to experience this, they're saying to themselves, I'm sorry, with so intently. And then they're apologizing to themselves, just saying, please forgive me for holding on to somebody else's belief system, because none of these are their authentic belief. Feeling stuck is not their authentic belief. Their soul does not come in to this life feeling disempowered. It comes in knowing itself as love. So they're saying, please forgive me for believing somebody else's energy of disempowerment or condition-based love. And then they're thanking themselves for finally cutting these cords and cleaning and clearing the energy around feeling stuck or disempowered or unloved or unappreciated. And then they're thanking themselves for the opposite, that through this experience, they're thanking themselves because now they can actually see this whole time that they've been the love. Because the only way for the soul to know it's the love is to temporarily think it's not. The only way to know what love is to feel unloved. So you're thanking yourself through this experience that you now know that you are this incredible love. And then in your heart, the most intense love you can ever imagine, you're saying to yourself, I love you. I say, just like when you remember your children were born for the first time, or you look into a puppy's eye, it's that intense love. You're saying that to your heart, I love you. Like you've never said that to yourself before, because you can have someone else tell you that they love you, but it's never as powerful as when you tell yourself you love yourself. So that's what I start with first.
And the whole basis of all of this, with really everything that you do for your work, is people have forgotten that they are the love. They've forgotten how to love themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So every illness, every emotion, disease, every bad relationship, it all boils down to this one thing, that we have forgotten how to love ourselves, that we are the love.
Yes.
So the universe, God, whatever people want to call that, presents all these different experiences and people that show up in our life to reflect back to us, to remember that we are the love, that
Yes.
we are everything we're searching for. We are it. It's
Yes.
nothing outside of ourselves.
Correct. So if let's say, for example, in your life, somebody shows up and they are a bully, and it doesn't have to be in middle school or grammar school. It could be an in-law, it could be a spouse, and they show up as a bully, or they show up as someone who's constantly putting you down, or they're a narcissist. They are a reflection of some belief inside of us. So whatever I'm seeing in them, if somebody is consistently bullying me and making me feel not good enough, that means somewhere in me I own that and can't see it. But the universe will allow me to see it in other people. So it will keep happening time and time again until I can finally recognize that the bully is just a reflection of my inner thought that my higher self is ready to clear out, but has not been able to humble itself enough to really take responsibility for it.
So in a bad relationship, it is that person that is in your life that is teaching you that love. You're thinking their love is what you're lacking, but they're really there, and it's a bad relationship to tell you and teach you that you are the love. Ultimately,
Correct.
that's what it is.
Yeah, and that's the reflection of the universe. That's really how, we are the universe. So we are, if I'm feeling unappreciated, if I'm just not appreciating myself for years, now, just like the law of attraction, I'm tuning to feeling unappreciated. So I can only draw people into my life who are going to match that energy. And then I'll say, geez, how come every day I keep finding people who are putting me down or writing rude things about me or this or that? It's because I'm emitting that frequency. So I can only see what I'm a vibrational match to.
And that's what I tell everybody. Our words and our thoughts have so much meaning, and people don't realize that what you speak, your words, if you go around through life saying, my life sucks and I'm unhappy and I'm miserable and I'm depressed, well, people don't realize that that's what they're actually going to keep creating in their world. It's going to keep showing up through people, through situations, until you realize that what you're putting out there is coming back to you for you to see that.
Absolutely. Do you have, is there any good example you can give where we could like, let's say it doesn't have to be you, but let's say you're like, okay, I remember this when I was younger, this person was going through this or this. And we can explain to the audience how that person, like, how they could work through it. Like if somebody's listening and they say, okay, I went through this, how do I work through it? Is there anything that sticks out?
As far as a bad relationship you're referring to?
Relationship, anything that sticks out where like somebody went through recently or in the past, and you say, okay, well, what would be the best way that we could help someone through something like this? Is there anything that sticks out?
So I know a lot of people right now, especially adults, divorce is rampant. Bad relationships keep showing up, and people they don't know how to leave a relationship that they've been in for so long because they've invested so much time and energy into it. And if there's children involved, they feel a sense of guilt and they don't want to leave. So I would say right now where people are in bad relationships and marriages that they don't know how to leave, they don't know how to get out.
Okay.
What do you recommend to all those?
Okay. So the first thing is to recognize it, that one, like, let's say the person says, I'm in a horrible relationship, I don't know how to get out. Right now, all they're doing is they're telling the universe, I don't know how to get out. And the universe keeps saying, you're right. And I will continue to help you feel like you can't get out. So the first thing is they have to change their energy. They have to change their vibration. So they have to first change that inner thought. I can get out, or I've always been a master of my life and I can change the direction anytime I want. So the first thing is they're just recognizing it. Then I'm going to say to them, I want you to bring up the emotions that this relationship is bringing out in you. So if they're in this relationship, right, like you were saying, they're probably feeling stuck. They're probably feeling disempowered. And then disempowerment would make us feel like a loser or make us feel unappreciated or like worthless. It can make us feel like we're judging ourselves. So now we start comparing ourselves to other people. And then we think we're not good enough and we can't do anything good anymore. And then people can start having thoughts of like, what's the use of even living? You know what I'm saying? So all of that now, so it starts this cycle, and the cycle gets stronger and stronger, So once that cycle gets stronger of that negative loop, your ego starts going back into the vault and thinking of everything else that you've ever been through that would match that cycle and say, oh, I remember this relationship when I was 18. And you start thinking of that and how horrible you felt. And it will keep bringing it up. So that's where you would Ho'oponopono it. You go through all of those feelings. If they were feeling judged, you Ho'oponopono judgment, everything. So once we bring them through all those emotions, because a lot of the emotions tie together. Because if you're feeling judged, you're probably feeling worthless. If you're feeling worthless, you're feeling unloved. So you could do unloved, or you could do each one individually at different timelines. And when I'm working with a patient, I can go into their energy and we could find a timeline, like what age we have to go to, and we would heal that and go through each age. So once we've cleared that, then I would have them define for me the opposite. So if we just cleared feeling worthless, well, what's the opposite of feeling worthless? What would you say?
Feeling worthy.
Yeah. So if you're feeling worthy, how else are you going to feel?
You would feel empowered.
Yeah. So I'd say to you, tell me a time in your life when you were truly empowered. Tell me a time in your life when you did something when you truly felt empowered. Right. So now they're going to bring up that memory. So now all of a sudden what they're doing, like Dr. Joe Dispenza says, now you're rewiring. So you're firing and wiring new pathways in the brain. So now you're telling me a story when you felt empowered. Then I'm going to say to them, okay, well, tell me how it felt. Well, it felt free. It felt like unconditional love. Okay, great. So now I would say, okay, now write a letter to yourself, apologizing for ever believing these false beliefs that you were ever unloved. It was never you that was ever unloved. It was the false beliefs that we learned from our parents, ancestors, friends, religious leaders, that says love comes from an outside source. If you do this, then you're worthy. If you pray or you give or you tithe 10%, you're a good person. If you don't do that, you're horrible. Or if you say 10 Hail Marys every day, you're a good person. If not, you're going to go to hell. You know what I mean? So you're writing a letter to yourself, realizing all these false beliefs that were never true. It was somebody else's way of getting fear to dominate your life. Because if you're in a place of fear, someone can control you. So when you write the letter, now you're recognizing it.
So
Yeah.
what I see in society is our belief system is so strongly rooted in us. And
Yeah.
that belief system is really hard to break down, because I see this in people all the time. They will defend their belief systems. And it's a barrier that is very, very so deep and subconscious. It's almost difficult for people to surpass those beliefs. So how would you break through such a strong belief in people?
So imagine like we were digging a tunnel, and the tunnel that we were digging was leading in the wrong direction. So we have a choice now. We could walk backwards and go to where we started and dig a new tunnel, which is one way we can do it. So the way to walk backwards, that's where somebody's got to be willing to do the work, is they have to start reversing those thoughts. They have to recognize that they're digging in the wrong direction and be willing to turn around. So to be willing to turn around means you're willing. When someone looks in the mirror, most of the time they're looking at themselves, but they're not seeing themselves. So they're looking at the tunnel that they just dug, but they don't see the fact that they dug it in the wrong direction. So they don't see the fact that they were buying into these false beliefs. So recognition is the most powerful thing. If I can recognize that I'm off track, the second I start thinking negative thoughts, the power comes in recognizing it. All of my mentors and teachers have always said it's normal to think a negative thought and to get off track, but it's not normal to stay there. It's how fast can you recover? You know, the expert in martial arts, you know, it looks like they never get thrown off balance, but they may say, oh, I was thrown off balance 50 times during this sparring match, but they recovered so fast you couldn't tell. So it's how quickly can you get out of that tunnel that you dug and start the new tunnel. And starting the new tunnel is very easy. It's literally like on the left side of our energy is our past consciousness. So if that was the energy of I'm not good enough, well, now I say, well, what's the opposite? Well, the opposite is I've always been enough. I've always been perfect. And then what do you think the ego is going to say? Yeah, absolutely. Or no, I don't agree with you. What do you think
the ego is going to fight you. The ego wants to believe those false beliefs.
Yes. Now, why do you think it wants to do that?
Because the ego is a low vibration that feeds on those false beliefs.
Yeah. So if it's a low vibration and it feeds on those beliefs, it's also used to the familiar.
Correct.
Right? And when it's used to the familiar, even if it doesn't serve us, now it's succeeding because it's stressing us out. And when we're stressed out, we start releasing stress hormone, and it's very addictive to the body.
What I have found in doing this work is it's like building a muscle.
Mm-hmm.
When you first go to the gym, it's really difficult at first, but then you build the muscle and it becomes easier. And it's the same with letting go of our belief systems that are so embedded in us, to rewire the brain, which the brain is a muscle. So we're taking, starting with baby steps on doing the Ho'oponopono and getting rid of these false sense of beliefs. But you get to a point where you start doing this enough in your body, you can almost instantly do a quick change in the way we think to go to the opposite, because the brain then becomes rewired and reconditioned to recognize, oh, I know what this is. This is my ego. This is, negative. Let me adjust it to the positive. Let me see, why is this happening to me? What's the reason? What's the purpose? Why is it showing up now? And we can instantly go to the other side and make that adjustment. But initially it takes work to you have that muscle built within your system to make the leap over to the other side.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And once you have enough faith in yourself that when one of the greatest fears that the ego has, like let's say the ego has this false belief because it was told at a young age that we're not good enough. So the ego's job is to protect me from ever diving deep into that false belief, because it says, well, what if you dive in deep and it turns out to be true? Then I'll die. Then I'll be so worthless. It won't be worth living. I don't want to even uncover that. So it will hide and run away from any opportunity for me to ever try and uncover that. So it will kick and scream and fight me on that. So that's where, to give an example, like with me, when I'm breaking an old belief or an old habit, remember I said the left side is going to be our past. So I'll hear my ego. So like, let's say I'm clearing an old belief, like I'm not good enough, right? And I'll say, let's say the thought is, oh, you're not good enough. And I'll say, you know what? I'm not going there with you. I don't believe that anymore. And I'll visualize that thought on the left side. And I say, I'm going to bring it over to the right side. I have always been amazing. And then I'll hear it say, but I can't let go of that because I've created an identity. That's my identity. I've identified with the fact that I'm not good enough. And I say, oh, that's so good. And I visualize like I'm pulling my ego off me and I'm looking at it, like it's right in front of me. It's a version of me. And I said, listen, I love you. You are not going away. Don't be afraid that when we uncover this, that you're going to go away. I will always need you, but I don't need you to worry about this. So I visualize I'm having a conversation with myself, because when it uncovers the fact that it is worthy, that it's always been worthy, now it's going to change its identity, but it only thinks it's needed based on that identity. It says, well, that's my identity. My identity was to protect you from ever feeling unworthy. And I say, well, you don't have to protect me, because my soul knows us, and it knows that that's just how we're created, and it can never change. No outer circumstances, no person or place or event can ever make me feel unworthy when we're created worthy. Just like a cork has to float. It cannot sink unless you change the cork. So if you don't change who you are, you will always remember your worthiness.
And that is a very difficult thing for most people, because from the moment we are born, we have been taught we've not been taught that we're this loving, magnificent, perfect human being that can do anything. We're taught fear. We're brought up in a world that's based on fear and casting doubt and putting us down and not feeling good enough.
Yeah.
And that's where it stems from. What I see are adults that are wounded children walking around because they didn't know how to love themselves. They never saw love. And I don't care what type of, household you grew up in or how bad your home environment was. You can change and rewire all of that. Yes. And maybe all that happened to you because you needed to come around to realize you are the love. Maybe that was your life lesson in this lifetime, is deem how worthy and how much love you are inside.
Yes. And what you said was so perfect, because understanding that principle you were just talking about really goes back to the law that we're given, that says we're given free will. So if we're given free will, that means we're free to keep thinking a negative thought, or we're free to change that negative thought. It just comes with a decision to change, because the longer we hold on to those false beliefs, the longer the ego carves that into cement and says, this is who I am. So this is my identity. I'm not good enough. That's my identity. And if you change that from me, then who will I be?
And that is the key point that you said. It's a decision. It is just as simple as making a decision. I am not going to be this person anymore, and I choose something different.
Yeah.
And when you come to that, it's where the rubber meets the road. It's where
Yeah.
you get sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yes.
You instantly make a decision. That's it. I'm done.
Yes.
And I know for me, in relationships that have not worked out, I have tolerated bad behavior for a really long time. And then I get to a point where that's it. Like something clicks and a decision is made and I'm done and I just get out of it.
Okay. So now real quick, when it clicks, what part of you was responsible for the click? Your ego or your soul?
I think it's my soul.
Absolutely. But how come it took so long for the click to happen?
Because my ego kept buying in to what was being said to me in the relationship. And it was my doubt and my fear in myself.
Yeah.
I could just walk away from this, that I would be okay. I thought I would die,
Yeah.
Financially. And how am I going to do this?
So now to go even deeper. So now those belief systems were taught to you.
Yes.
Right? So you see how it goes back. We keep unraveling it. And then those belief systems were taught to the people who taught you.
Correct.
So when our ego gets a hold of a definition at a very young age, like, oh, you can't do this, little kids can't do this, girls can't do that, boys can't do this, you shouldn't wear that, you shouldn't read this, you should, that's where it starts. So that click can happen if somebody is watching this and they think it's too far gone for them. It's never. It doesn't matter what age we are, how young or old we are, the click is always within us. So when you allow that aha click to happen, is because now you saw in yourself the true love and you weren't afraid anymore. Once you saw the love in yourself, all the fear went away.
Right. And that's what it was. It was like, I love myself enough to not tolerate this anymore. I'm done. I'm not going to put up with this. And it's just something instantly clicked and I just unraveled everything.
Yes.
But
absolutely.
For a lot of people, it takes a lot of putting up with bad behavior and tolerating this before they make a decision. And I think a lot of people think, especially if you're married, that you need to go to marriage counseling. You need to make this work. No matter how bad they're treating you, our society, it's like you're a failure if you give up on a marriage, especially if you have children. So you stay in it for the wrong reasons, which could be the children or financial or whatever, any number of reasons there are, because they don't think that they should just walk away.
Correct. And what I've seen also is, to your point, a lot of people who are in a marriage say, and it's not just women, it's men also. They'll say, I know I should get out of this marriage. It's not good. It's toxic. Or I'm staying for the kids. So I say to them, okay, so you're staying for your children. How old are your children? They're like, one's 12, one's 16, one's 20. I said, your children are a lot smarter than you think. They're watching you. They're watching your other significant other. They're learning from you. They're watching they're watching you as you're unwilling to step out of your comfort zone and do something that really serves you. So you're teaching them to stay in a bad situation that they don't want. You're teaching them to become resilient, stiff upper lip, hit me again, I can take it. You're teaching them to give up control. You're teaching them to be powerless. Imagine the lesson you could teach them by showing them, I'm not afraid to get out of a relationship that doesn't serve me. And I'm not staying in a relationship for my children. I'm getting out of the relationship for my children. So they're inspired to know that if they're ever in a bad relationship, they do not have to stay in that relationship. I want them to have the power and the passion to get out of that relationship for them, not for the children.
And
Yeah.
That is such a powerful point. And when I went through my divorce, I thought it was better staying for my children. But as I unraveled that marriage and I told my children, I don't want you to get to my age and stay in something that's not good or serving your highest good because you have children or you're afraid. I said, I'm teaching you that if something's toxic and not healthy for you, that you can just get away,
Yeah.
end it. And
Yeah.
so it's empowering you, just like what you said. And for them, I said, if you're ever in a situation that's a bad relationship, don't stay long term like I did, because I wound up getting breast cancer being in a bad marriage. And, disease happens over time because of our emotions that we stuff inside of us.
Yes.
And don't wait till you're sick to get out of something that is not serving your highest good.
Yes, absolutely. Because once it gets to that point, I've had patients that come in and they come in with the diseases already, and their spouse comes with them, and I as I'm talking to the patient, they say to me, I say, because I know as I'm working on their body, I know the answer, and then I have their spouse leave the room for a second. And I say, I look at them and I say, I know you know exactly how this disease was created. And they say, you're absolutely right. I said it was from my spouse, because they've been cheating on me this whole time. And right when they found out about the illness, they stopped and they started focusing on them. So if I get better, are they going to go back and start cheating again? See what I mean? See how entwined it was?
Mm-hmm.
So it just depends on where somebody is, if they're willing to get out of the relationship or if they're not. But that whole relationship was based off of guilt.
Right.
Yeah. So, well, listen, this was awesome.
So let's just wrap up for everybody the steps on how to get out of a bad relationship.
Okay.
Loving yourself. So we're going to first recognize that it is a bad relationship. Come to terms that, this is not working for me. It's a bad relationship. It's not healthy. It's not serving my highest good. And I need to get out. Make that decision that you need to get out.
Yes.
Once you make that decision, then write a letter to yourself.
Yes.
And what are they going to put in the letter to themselves? Well,
once you start writing, it's just going to start flowing. It's like you're writing a letter to yourself that you're giving yourself permission now to change, to let go. And then once you start writing it, this incredible flow is going to happen. You're writing, saying, I love you so much. I'm giving you permission to let go of this. And then it'll all flow. Yeah, it'll all start flowing. And then they'll get an idea of all the stuff they were putting up with, all the feelings that they were feeling. I was feeling, unloved, unappreciated, not good enough. And through that's where then we do Ho'oponopono. So we're clearing out those old hurts that they learned to put up with. So if they learned that they had a belief system of not being good enough, now we're Ho'oponoponoing them.
Which is what are the 4 steps to Ho'oponopono? Just for everyone.
The four steps is I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. Those are the 4.
That is for ourselves. We're doing that for us.
You're only doing it for you. So if someone is in a relationship where their spouse is cheating on them, they are not saying it for the spouse or to the spouse. They're only saying it to themselves, because on the deepest level, the spouse is just a reflection of them. Okay.
And is there any other step after that then, once they do that?
So then once they do the Ho'oponopono, so like let's say it was you're doing it for feeling not good enough, right? Or unworthy. Once they finish that, then we go to the opposite. What is the opposite of feeling unworthy? And it's whatever it means to you. Some people will say, well, feeling worthy or feeling unjudged or feeling empowered. So whatever that word is, whatever that feeling is, They're now going to declare that that's who they've always been. Remember, it goes from the left side to the right side. I have always been empowered. I have always been the empowered version of myself. Always. I have always been the love, whatever it may be. So when you're stating, I have always been, you're telling the ego, from the time I was created, I've always been the love.
Right.
Okay. And then once they do that, now I tell them, okay, now I want you to put this new version of you into your creative self. And now you're going to meditate, or you're going to creatively visualize yourself in this new life, feeling these new feelings, feeling empowered, feeling loved. So you're seeing it, just like Dr. Joe talks about with meditations, a strong intention with an elevated emotion. So now you have a strong intention of empowerment and you're elevating. Now you know what it feels like. You're living this life, this new version of you, so intently, so powerfully.
So if you picture your future self healthy, in a loving relationship, full of positive internal dialogue, whatever that future self is, if you can visualize it and feel it in your feeling body, you could create it right now,
Yes.
in here and now.
Yes.
You don't have to wait years down the road to have that. So that's really, with anything in life, that's how you manifest.
Correct.
Anything. So
That's
you're
exactly
instantly manifesting right now that future self, the future life that you want.
Correct.
And you could live it today.
Yes, exactly right.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
Is there anything else that anybody needs to do, or you think this is all the steps necessary?
And then the last step is, it's not a one-time thing. You know, like like Dr. Joe says, the caveat to this is you can't do this once and think it's going to change. You know, for me, I meditate 2 and 3 times a day. Not because I feel like it's just a routine. It's because the feeling that I'm able to create, like you just said, Holly, is what allows me to create my life. I'm no longer wondering what's going to happen. I'm now creating it. So once they're starting this process, meditating, visualizing, feeling it, becoming that new version of themselves, stepping out of the old version and becoming the new version, is something which you're doing every minute, every hour of every day. You're not just doing it, once or twice in an affirmation. You're constantly feeling that new version of yourself, whether it's that version of you that stepped out of the relationship or got the divorce or quit the job, whatever it may be. You're living that version.
Right.
Okay.
And that might be a little bit tricky for people that are so bogged down in the negative. Correct. To adjust to that mindset. Yes. But again, correct. It's like a muscle. Start yes. slow and build yes. on it. It's not correct. Like you sit every day and do hours of meditation.
Right. And and that's where they could take each step that we talk about, step by step. So if for the first month, all they're going to do is just feel the emotions that they've been feeling that are not true, and then just recognize it. That's the first thing. Then they will go into the Ho'oponoponoing each feeling. Then the next month they might write the letter. Then the next month they're doing the meditation. You know what I mean? So they could take it slowly.
And this is the most important thing, is we don't have to go to somebody like you, because once you're breaking out the steps, what it is to do, we are the healer of ourselves. That's correct. The most important thing that people need to realize. It's not you, Dr. Singer, that is healing me. It's me healing me. It's me recognizing this. You're basically shining a spotlight mm-hmm. on what's wrong, what you could see going on, what the dynamics are within my being that's created this illness. But ultimately, it's up to me to go and heal myself.
Yes.
Because there's nothing you can do to heal me. Even a doctor, when you go to a doctor doesn't heal you.
Correct.
A doctor is just treating a symptom, but we
Correct.
ultimately are the healer of ourselves.
Correct. And that's what I tell every patient. As I say right in the beginning, I say, I'm not the healer. You are.
Right.
Yes.
And that's the most important thing. We can heal, manifest, or create anything we want in our life when we make that decision to do it.
Correct. That's exactly right. It's just starting with that decision.
Right.
Excellent.
All right. I think we've completed our first series on loving yourself out of a bad relationship. And I want to thank you, Dr. Matt Singer, for being here and for offering your years of your practice on helping everybody empower themselves, because when you are an empowered being yourself and you heal yourself, you heal the planet and everybody else around you.
Absolutely. Well, and thank you, Holly. It's such an honor to do this with you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for joining Healing Through Love, and please stay tuned for future shows and join us as we spread the power of love.